The red dust of Mars swirled around Jack Miller's rover as he made his routine patrol of the colony's outer perimeter. 3 years on the red planet had taught him to expect the unexpected, but nothing could have prepared him for what he would find today. The former military medic checked his oxygen levels out of habit, still 4 hours of breathing time left, more than enough for his usual route. The setting sun cast long shadows across the Martian landscape, turning the rusty ground into a sea of darkness and light. That's when he saw it, a streak of fire cutting across the orange sky. "Control, this is Miller. I'm seeing something enter the atmosphere in Sector 7, he reported into his radio. Static answered him. The dust storm must be interfering with communications again. The object wasn't falling like normal space debris. It moved in a pattern, as if it was trying to control its descent. Jack watched as it disappeared behind a ridge about 2 kilometers away. A small explosion lit up the darkening sky. Every rule, every protocol said he should return to base and report it. But 6 years as a combat medic on Earth had taught him that sometimes rules cost lives. He turned the rover toward the ridge. 10 minutes later, Jack crested the hill. Below him, a silver pod about the size of a small car had carved a trench into the Martian soil. Its surface was covered in strange symbols that seemed to shift color in the fading light. Steam or smoke, he couldn't tell which, leaked from a crack in its side. Jack parked the rover and checked his gear. Medical kit, emergency repair tools, and his sidearm, standard issue for all perimeter patrols. He approached carefully, scanning for any signs of radiation with his suit's sensors. Nothing dangerous showed up on the readings. The crack in the pod's hull widened as he watched, and something moved inside. Jack's hand moved to his weapon, but he didn't draw it. Years of treating wounded soldiers had taught him to recognize the movements of someone in pain. A soft blue light pulsed from within the pod. Jack moved closer and peered inside. His heart nearly stopped. There, curled up in what looked like a pilot's seat, was a creature unlike anything he'd ever seen. It looked almost human in shape, but its skin had a transparent quality that reminded him of deep-sea creatures from Earth. Patterns of blue light moved under its skin like flowing water. It was small, maybe the size of a human teenager. But what caught his attention wasn't its alien appearance. It was the dark fluid leaking from a wound in its side. The color was different, but Jack recognized a serious injury when he saw one. The creature's eyes opened. They were completely black except for small points of white light, like stars in a night sky. It looked at Jack and made a sound, a mix between a whistle and a hum that somehow conveyed pain and fear. "It's okay," Jack said, knowing it probably couldn't understand him, but hoping his tone would help. "I'm a medic. I can help." The creature tried to move and winced. More of the dark fluid, probably blood, seeped from its wound. Jack's mind raced. Colony protocol was clear. Any alien contact must be reported immediately. The creature would be quarantined, studied, and probably treated like a lab specimen. And given the technology of that pod, others would come looking for it. But right now, none of that mattered. What mattered was that there was a wounded being in front of him, and he had taken an oath to help those in need. Jack reached for his medical kit. "I'm going to help you," he said firmly. "Then we'll figure out the rest." The creature's lights pulsed weakly, and Jack saw what might have been gratitude in those strange eyes. As he prepared to treat its wounds, he knew his life would never be the same. Some choices, once made, can't be undone. But as he opened his medical kit, Jack Miller knew he was making the right one. Getting the injured alien back to his quarters was the hardest thing Jack had ever done. He had to wait until nightfall, when most of the colony was asleep, and use the maintenance tunnels to avoid the security cameras. The creature, despite being light enough to carry, leaked that strange glowing blood that he had to keep cleaning up to hide their trail. His private quarters, earned after 3 years of service, were in the older section of the colony. The room wasn't much, just a small living space with a separate bedroom and a tiny medical station he'd set up for his off-duty research. But right now, it was the safest place in the colony. The alien lay on his medical bed, its light patterns pulsing weakly. Under better lighting, Jack could see more details. Its face had human-like features, 2 eyes, a nose-like structure, and a small mouth. But everything was softer, more fluid. Its skin looked like moving water trapped under glass. "Okay," Jack muttered, laying out his medical supplies. "Let's figure this out." The wound was unlike anything he'd seen before. The alien's transparent skin made it possible to see the damage inside. Something had torn through several layers of tissue that seemed to shift between solid and liquid states. The creature watched him with those star-filled eyes as he cleaned the wound. When he touched its skin, something strange happened. Images flashed through his mind. A large ship, dark figures in crystal armor, fear, escape, stars rushing past. Jack jumped back, startled. The alien made that humming whistle sound again, but this time it seemed apologetic. "You can share memories," Jack said, understanding dawning on his face. That's amazing." He pointed to himself. "Jack," he said clearly. Then he reached out slowly and touched the alien's arm, thinking hard about his name. The creature's lights brightened slightly. It lifted a delicate hand and touched its own chest, sending him an image of swirling blue lights dancing in dark water. "Blue," Jack said, smiling. "I'll call you Blue. Is that okay?" The alien, Blue, made a sound that might have been a laugh, and her lights pulsed in what seemed like agreement. Over the next few hours, Jack worked carefully to treat Blue's injuries. He discovered that his regular bandages dissolved on contact with her skin, but the liquid medical foam he used for burns seemed to work. Blue helped by using her lights to show him where the pain was worst. As he worked, they developed a simple way to communicate. Touch brought clear images and feelings, and they both learned to send simple ideas to each other. Blue showed him more of what she was running from, the crystal-armored hunters who had attacked her people. Jack shared peaceful images of Earth and his work as a medic. A knock at the door froze them both. "Miller? You in there?" It was Tom from security. "Missed you at morning check-in." Jack quickly dimmed the lights and pulled a blanket over Blue, whose glow would have been visible through the medical bay's window. "Yeah, sorry," he called out. "Wasn't feeling well after my shift. Thought I'd sleep it off." "You need medical?" No, I've got what I need here. Just some rest and I'll be fine." There was a pause. "All right, but file your patrol report when you can. Something came down in Sector 7 last night, and we're all supposed to report anything unusual." "Will do," Jack replied, his heart pounding. After Tom's footsteps faded, Jack let out a long breath. Blue touched his arm gently, sending him feelings of gratitude and worry. "It's okay," he said, patting her hand. "We'll figure this out." But as he looked at the alien he'd saved, this young creature who trusted him completely, Jack knew things would only get harder. The colony wasn't that big, and secrets had a way of getting out. Sooner or later, someone would discover Blue. He just hoped he'd be ready when they did. The colony's warning sirens woke Jack from his short sleep. He'd spent most of the night monitoring Blue's healing process, amazed at how quickly her body repaired itself once he'd treated the main injury. "Attention all personnel," the colony's AI announced over the speakers. "An unscheduled ship has entered Mars orbit. All personnel report to their designated stations." Blue touched his arm, sending him a wave of fear. In her shared memory, Jack saw the ship, a massive structure that looked like it was made of black crystal, with sharp edges that seemed to cut into space itself. "They found me," Blue's touch told him, her lights dimming to almost nothing. Jack quickly checked his tablet. The colony's public feed showed the ship, exactly as Blue had shown him. His heart sank as he read the official message. "The Meridian diplomatic vessel Star Hunter requests emergency docking for repairs." "Diplomatic vessel," Jack muttered. "That's what they're calling themselves." Blue shared another memory. Her people, the Luminary, being hunted across the galaxy. The Meridians claimed they were containing dangerous criminals, but the truth was darker. They wanted the luminaries' ability to share memories and emotions, and they didn't care how they got it. The colony shook slightly as the massive ship docked with the main port. Jack's tablet buzzed with new orders. All medical personnel were to report to the main hall for a special announcement. "Stay here," he told Blue, sending calming thoughts through their touch. "Don't make any light. Don't move." The main hall was packed with colonists. Jack found a spot near the back, trying to look as normal as possible. The colony administrator, a thin man named Rogers, stood on the stage with three figures that made Jack's blood run cold. The Meridians were tall, nearly 8 feet, and wore crystal armor that seemed to absorb light. Their faces were hidden behind black visors, but Jack could feel their gaze sweeping the crowd. "Our guests," Rogers announced, his voice shaking slightly, "are conducting a search for a dangerous fugitive. They have authority from both Earth and the Galactic Council to inspect our colony. Please give them your full cooperation." The tallest Meridian stepped forward. Its voice sounded like grinding glass. "We seek a young luminary criminal. It is dangerous. It will try to trick you with false memories and emotions. Report any unusual lights or unexplained feelings immediately." Jack kept his face neutral, but his mind raced. They were lying. He knew from Blue's memories that she was no criminal. She was a refugee, running from these hunters who had already destroyed most of her people. The meeting ended with an announcement that room-by-room searches would begin immediately. As the crowd dispersed, Jack saw teams of Meridians setting up strange devices at each corridor junction, probably sensors to detect Blue's unique energy signature. He had to get back to his quarters, but as he turned to leave, he bumped into Tom from security. "Hey, Miller," Tom said quietly. "Remember that thing that came down in Sector 7? These guys seem really interested in it. They're sending a team out there now." Jack forced a smile. Well, good luck to them in this dust storm. But he knew they wouldn't need luck. Those crystal suits probably had better scanning technology than anything humans had. He needed to act fast. Back in his quarters, Blue was exactly where he'd left her, though her lights were completely dark. She showed him what she'd seen through the walls. More Meridians, moving through the colony with their scanning devices. "We need a new plan," Jack said, checking his tablet for the search patterns. "They'll be here in less than 2 hours." Blue touched his arm, sending him an image of herself surrendering to save him from trouble. "No," Jack said firmly, surprising himself with how protective he felt. "That's not happening. I didn't save you just to hand you over to them." He looked at his quarters, at the maintenance shaft access panel he'd used to smuggle Blue in. Maybe, just maybe, it could work the other way too. "We're going to need help," he told Blue, already typing a message to the few people he trusted in the colony. "And we're going to have to move fast." The sound of crystal boots in the corridor outside made them both freeze. Time was running out. Jack had never been more grateful for his time in the military. It had taught him that in desperate situations, you often find allies in unexpected places. As he and Blue huddled in the narrow maintenance tunnel, he counted on that lesson being true now. The message he'd sent was simple. Need help. Life at stake. Maintenance Junction B7. Come alone or not at all. He'd sent it to just 3 people. A maintenance worker who owed him for treating her daughter off the records, a science officer who'd once confided his distrust of government policies, and a security guard who'd served in the same military unit as Jack. "Someone's coming." Blue showed him through touch, her lights dimming to almost nothing in the darkness of the tunnel. Heavy footsteps echoed through the metal passage. Jack tensed, his hand moving to the tool he grabbed as a makeshift weapon. Then came the whispered password he'd asked for. "Remember Bangkok." "Pete," Jack whispered back. "That you?" Pete, the security guard, crawled into view. Behind him came Lisa from maintenance and Dr. Wright from the science division. All 3 stopped short at the sight of Blue, but none of them screamed or ran. "So this is what the Meridians are hunting," Dr. Wright said softly. She's beautiful. Blue's lights pulsed gently at the compliment, creating soft patterns in the dark tunnel. They're lying about her, Jack said quickly. She's not dangerous. She's a refugee. The Meridians are hunting her people to extinction. We know, Lisa interrupted. Or at least we guessed. Those crystal-headed monsters have been tearing the colony apart. They're scanning everyone's quarters, interrogating people. They made my little Amy cry during their search. Pete nodded grimly. They're not here for any diplomatic mission. I've seen their weapons. They're hunters, not diplomats. Blue touched Jack's arm, then hesitantly reached toward Dr. Wright. The scientist nodded, understanding, and let her make contact. His eyes widened as she shared her memories. They're harvesting them. Wright gasped. The luminary. They're taking them apart to study their abilities. It's horrible. We need to get her out, Jack said. But they've got sensors everywhere. Any ideas? Lisa grinned. Actually, yes. The dust storms mess with their scanners. I've been watching them recalibrate every few hours. And I know this maintenance system better than anyone. We'll need a diversion, Pete added. And I think I know just the thing. The backup generators in Section C have been unstable. One small accident. I can help too, Wright said. My lab has some experimental materials that could mask her energy signature. It's not perfect, but combined with the dust storm interference. Jack felt hope for the first time since the Meridians arrived. We need to move fast. They're searching section by section, and they're getting close. They spent the next hour planning. Lisa drew maps of the maintenance tunnels, marking the safe routes and potential hiding spots. Pete outlined the security patrol patterns and blind spots. Wright left and returned with what looked like a blanket made of shimmering material. It's designed to mask heat signatures, he explained. I've modified it to handle her type of energy too. Not perfect, but it should help. Blue touched each of them in turn, sharing her gratitude. Even Pete, the tough ex-soldier, seemed moved by the direct emotional contact. The Meridian said she tried to trick us with false emotions, Lisa said softly. But this is real. You can feel it. Tomorrow, Jack decided, when the dust storm is strongest. Pete triggers the generator accident, Wright monitors the sensor data, and Lisa guides us through the tunnels. A distant clanking sound made them all freeze. Meridian search teams, moving through the main corridors above. They're getting closer, Pete whispered. We should split up. Less suspicious that way. As their new allies crawled away through different tunnel branches, Jack looked at Blue. She was showing more light patterns than before. Hope, he realized. She was showing hope. Tomorrow, he promised her. Tomorrow we get you out of here. But as he settled in for another tense night in the tunnels, Jack couldn't shake the feeling that their plan, no matter how careful, was about to face challenges none of them could predict. The colony's morning announcement carried news that made Jack's blood run cold. 6 colonists had been detained for questioning by the Meridians. Among them was Lisa from maintenance, one of their allies from last night. They're taking our people. Pete's voice crackled through the hidden communicator he'd given Jack. Wright says they're using some kind of mind-scanning technology on them, looking for traces of Blue's memory sharing. Jack and Blue were hiding in a forgotten storage room deep in the maintenance tunnels. Blue touched his arm, sharing his worry. Through their connection, she showed him something new, how the Meridians' mind scanning could hurt humans, damaging their memories. We have to move tonight, Jack decided. We can't wait for the next dust storm. His communicator crackled again. This time it was Wright, his voice tense. Jack, Earth representatives just landed. But something's wrong. They're not here to help. Through the colony's information feed, Jack watched the Earth officials arrive. Their faces were stiff, diplomatic. They talked about cooperation and galactic peace, while the Meridians took more colonists for questioning. Blue's lights pulsed in a pattern Jack had learned meant anger. She shared a memory. Similar officials on other worlds, turning away while her people were hunted. always for peace, always for cooperation. A loud bang made them both jump. Footsteps echoed through the tunnels, the heavy crystal boots of Meridian hunters. They're expanding the search to the maintenance areas. Pete's whispered through the comm. Wright's distraction gear isn't going to hold much longer. Jack looked at the tunnel map Lisa had drawn. They were running out of places to hide. The Meridians were thorough, and with Earth backing them. Blue touched his arm again, but this time she shared something different, a memory of her people's ships, hidden in the ice caves near Mars' North Pole, if they could reach them. Pete, Jack whispered into the comm, can you still access the rover bay? For now. They're focusing on the living quarters first. Why? We need the long-range rover, the one meant for polar expeditions. There was a pause. You're crazy, Miller. That's a death run even without crystal-headed hunters chasing you. Better than what's coming, Jack replied, watching Blue's lights dim as another search team passed nearby. The Meridians won't stop with just questions. You've seen what they're really like. Wright's voice joined the conversation. He's right. I just saw their questioning room. It's not right. These aren't diplomats. They're butchers pretending to be diplomats. The sound of crystal boots grew closer. Jack and Blue pressed themselves into the darkest corner of the storage room. Okay, Pete finally said. But we do this smart. Right, can you mess with the sensor grid? For maybe 10 minutes. Then they'll know something's wrong. 10 minutes, Jack repeated. From the storage room to the rover bay. We'll need every second. Blue showed him another memory. Her people could move very fast when they needed to. She could keep up. Suddenly, alarms blared throughout the colony. A new announcement echoed through the tunnels. Attention all personnel. By order of Earth Command and our Meridian allies, martial law is now in effect. All civilians must return to their quarters for mandatory screening. Any resistance will be met with force. They're done pretending. Wright's voice shook. Jack, if you're going to run, it has to be now. Jack looked at Blue, who had dimmed her lights completely in the darkness. She had trusted him from the moment he found her. Now he had to trust her too. Pete. Right. Thank you. Both of you. If we don't make it. Shut up, Miller. Pete cut him off. Just get ready to run. Right, start the sensor blackout on my mark. Jack took Blue's hand, feeling her determination match his own. The storage room felt smaller by the second, and the sound of crystal boots echoed from all directions now. 3 minutes, Pete whispered. Then we make history, or die trying. The Meridians were closing in, but for the first time, Jack smiled. Sometimes, he thought, the only way to win is to risk everything. The darkened rover bay felt like a trap. Jack and Blue crouched behind a fuel container, counting seconds as Wright's sensor blackout kicked in. Alarms still blared throughout the colony, making Jack's heart pound with each blast. Now, Pete's voice crackled through the comm. You've got 8 minutes before the sensors come back online. They ran. Blue moved like flowing water, exactly as she'd shown in her memories. Jack sprinted beside her, breathing hard in the Mars-normal atmosphere of the colony. The rover bay's main door opened slowly, too slowly, as Pete operated it remotely from his security station. Stop them! The grinding crystal voice of a Meridian hunter echoed through the bay. Energy bolts sliced through the air, leaving glowing trails where they passed. Jack and Blue dove behind the polar rover, a massive 6-wheeled vehicle built to survive the harshest Martian conditions. Jack scrambled into the driver's seat, while Blue practically flowed into the passenger side. Come on, Jack muttered, his hands flying over the startup sequence. The rover's engines hummed to life just as more energy bolts struck its armored side. 4 Meridian pursuit vehicles launching. Wright's voice warned through the comm. They're using their own rovers. The bay doors were only half open when Jack gunned the engine. The rover crashed through, tearing metal and sending sparks flying. They burst out onto the Martian surface just as the dust storm hit. Red winds howled around them, reducing visibility to almost nothing. But Jack had driven these routes for 3 years. He didn't need to see the path. He knew it by heart. Blue touched his arm, sharing her night vision. Through her eyes, he could see the heat signatures of the Meridian vehicles spreading out behind them, trying to surround them. "They can't track us in the storm," Jack said, taking a sharp turn between two rock formations. "But they know where we're going." The polar ice caves. A blast rocked the rover, nearly sending them off course. One of the Meridian vehicles had gotten lucky in the storm. "Jack." Wright's panicked voice cut through the static. They're in my lab. They know I helped. Pete's trying to, too." The comm went dead. Blue's lights pulsed with worry and guilt. She showed Jack an image of them turning back, surrendering to save their friends. "No," Jack said firmly, swerving to avoid another blast. Pete and Wright knew the risks. "The best thing we can do is make sure their sacrifice means something." The rover's wheels fought for traction in the growing storm. Behind them, 2 of the Meridian vehicles had crashed into each other, their pilots unused to Martian conditions. But 2 more were still following, gaining ground. 6 minutes to the caves, the rover's computer announced calmly. An explosion lit up the storm behind them, Pete's last gift. He'd rigged the colony's backup generators to blow, just as planned. The blast wouldn't hurt anyone, but it would force the Meridians to split their forces. Blue suddenly grabbed Jack's arm, sharing urgent images. The caves ahead weren't just hiding places. They contained her people's emergency beacon, if they could reach it. A direct hit rocked their rover, sending warning lights flashing across the dashboard. The right rear wheel was damaged, slowing them down. The Meridian vehicles were closing in, their crystal hulls gleaming even in the dust storm. "We're not going to make it," Jack realized aloud. But then he saw something through Blue's shared vision. A narrow canyon ahead. Too narrow for the Meridian vehicles. "Hold on." Jack turned sharply, sending their rover straight toward the canyon walls. Blue's lights pulsed with alarm, but she trusted him. The rover barely squeezed through, scraping paint off both sides. Behind them, 1 Meridian vehicle crashed trying to follow. The other pulled back, looking for another route. But the damage was done. Their rover was failing, leaking vital fluids into the Martian soil. The ice caves were still minutes away, and the storm was getting worse. "We've got 1 shot at this," Jack said, pushing the failing rover to its limits. "When we stop, run. Don't wait for me." Blue's response was immediate and firm, a memory of them either making it together or not at all. Ahead, through the howling storm, the white walls of the polar ice caves began to appear. Behind them, more Meridian vehicles were closing in. The real race was about to begin. The ice caves glowed with an eerie blue light as Jack and Blue abandoned their smoking rover. The Meridian hunters were close behind, their crystal armor reflecting off the frozen walls. Jack's breathing was harsh in the thin Martian atmosphere of his emergency suit, each step a struggle in the lower gravity. Blue moved faster now, her lights pulsing with purpose. Through their touch, she guided Jack deeper into the caves, towards something her people had hidden long ago. They could hear the crystal boots of the hunters echoing through the ice tunnels. "There's nowhere left to run," the grinding voice of the Lid Meridian echoed. "Surrender the luminary, human, and we might spare your colony further questioning." Jack didn't waste breath responding. Blue had shown him what questioning really meant. Instead, they pressed on, ducking through a narrow ice tunnel that opened into a vast chamber. There, frozen in the ice wall, was something that made Jack's jaw drop. A ship, but unlike any he'd seen before. It was organic-looking, like a massive sea creature made of light and metal. Blue touched his arm excitedly. This was what they'd been running toward. Not just a beacon, but a fully functional luminary rescue ship. "Stop!" The Meridian hunters burst into the chamber, weapons raised. The lead hunter stepped forward, crystal armor cracking with energy. "That ship is claimed by the Meridian Empire. Stand away from it." "Claimed," Jack laughed, despite their desperate situation. Like you claimed the right to hunt Blue's people, to torture them for their abilities. The Luminari are a threat, the hunter growled. Their ability to share memories, to influence emotions, it makes them too dangerous to exist. Blue's lights flared suddenly, brilliantly. She touched Jack's arm one last time, sharing not just images but years of memories. Her people were peaceful explorers, sharing knowledge and culture across the galaxy. The Meridians feared them because they couldn't control them, couldn't keep secrets from beings who shared truth through touch. You're right about one thing, Jack said, stepping forward. Truth is dangerous, to people like you. The hunters raised their weapons, but suddenly stopped as a new sound filled the chamber. A high-pitched tone that made the ice walls vibrate. Blue was touching the ship's frozen surface, her lights synchronized with its pulsing glow. The ice was cracking, melting away. "Stop her," the lead hunter shouted. But before they could fire, a blinding light filled the chamber. The ship was awake. More lights appeared in the chamber, dozens of them. Hidden compartments in the ship opened, revealing more luminary. They'd been in stasis, waiting. Blue's people had planned for this, had hidden their survivors in secret places across the galaxy. The Meridian hunters stepped back as the chamber filled with floating lights. The luminary moved like a school of fish, surrounding Blue and Jack protectively. "This is impossible," the lead hunter growled. "The luminary are nearly extinct. We made sure." New alarms started blaring, but not from the colony this time. Through the cave's entrance, they could see ships descending through the Martian atmosphere. But not Meridian ships. "This is the Earth Defense Fleet." A powerful voice boomed through all their communicators, along with representatives from the Free Worlds Alliance. "We received evidence of Meridian war crimes against the Luminary people. Stand down immediately." Jack grinned as he recognized Wright's voice, adding, "Evidence I've been broadcasting for the last hour, you crystal-headed monsters." The Meridian hunters looked at each other, then at the growing number of ships landing outside. Their weapons lowered slowly. Blue touched Jack's arm one last time, sharing feelings of joy, gratitude, and a question. The other luminary were waiting, ready to leave, to find more of their hidden people, but they would wait for her answer. "Yes," Jack said, understanding her question. "I'll come with you. Someone needs to tell Earth the whole story, and I think I've got some experience protecting Luminary by now." Blue's lights danced with happiness as the Meridian hunters were led away by Earth forces. Outside the cave, the Martian dawn was breaking, painting the sky in shades of red and gold. Sometimes, Jack thought, watching Blue reunite with her people, the right choice leads you to places you never expected. He didn't know what adventures awaited them among the stars, but he knew one thing. He'd never regret the moment he decided to help a wounded alien girl who fell from the sky. The universe, after all, was full of wonders, and now he had a family to explore it with.